مولا کا مولا ایک ہے، ہم مزاداروں کے دل سے پوچھئے اس کا وقار، ہم مزاداروں کے دل سے پوچھئے اس کا وقار۔ خلد میں اور مجلس سرور میں جانا ایک ہے، میرا مولا اور میرے مولا کا مولا ایک ہے۔ صلوات۔
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. May Allah bless you, and inshallah our condolences are there to the Imam of our time on the Shahadat of his grandfather Al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. I'm going to request my brothers from the Garden of Mahdi, Gulistan Mahdi, to recite a few words on the honor of this blessed night. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات۔
اللہم صل علی محمد و آل محمد۔
زہر دغا سے غیر جو حال حسن ہوا، زہر دغا سے غیر جو حال حسن ہوا، خنجر جگر زینب مضطر کے چل گیا، خنجر جگر پا زینب مضطر کے چل گیا، کلثوم رو کے کہنے لگی وا محمد، عباس نے بھی چاک گریبان کر لیا، عباس نے بھی چاک گریبان کر لیا، تعبیر خواب سوچ کے بےتاب ہوتے ہیں، شب کا حال دیکھ کے شبیر شبر کا حال دیکھ کے شبیر روتے ہیں، درد جگر بڑھا تو پکارے شہ زمان، کہوگی تم لگن تو اٹھا لاؤ اے بہان، زینب نے لا کے سامنے جس دم رکھا لگا، تھامے ہوئے کلیج کو اس پر جھکے
حسن
کٹ کٹ کے قلب سید والا نکل پڑا یاقوت بن کے منہ سے کلیجہ نکل
پڑا
یاقوت بن کے منہ سے کلیجہ نکل
پڑا
زینب کے بہن سن کے مخاطب ہوئے امام زینب کے بہن سن کے مخاطب ہوئے امام دار فنا میں زیست کی مدت ہوئی
تمام
جانا ہے مجھ کو نانا کی خدمت میں لا کلا رونا لکھا ہے تیرے مقدر میں صبح بی بی نہ رو کے پھٹتا ہے دل تیرے بین سے تجھ کو ابھی بچھڑنا ہے بھائی حسین
سے
تجھ کو ابھی بچھڑنا ہے بھائی حسین
سے
پیش نظر ہے مار کے دشت کربلا کام آئیں گے حسین کے جب خیش و اقربا دیکھے گی تو حسین کا کٹتا ہوا گلا خیمے جلیں گے اور چھنے گی تیری
رضا
خیمے جلیں گے اور چھنے گی تیری تو سر برہ نہ جائے گی بازار شام میں بلوائے گا شقی تجھے دربار عام میں بلوائے گا شقی تجھے دربار عام میں بھیا تمہاری گود میں نکلے گا میرا تم دو گے ہم کو غسل و کفن جب مریں گے ہوگا تمہارے پاس نہ کوئی بجز قاتل سرہانے ہوئے گا یا خنجرے قاتل سرہانے ہوئے گا یا خنجرے شبر تو بعد مرگ بھی راحت سے سوئے گا لاشا تمہارا گھوڑوں سے پامال ہوئے گا لاشا تمہارا گھوڑوں سے پامال ہوئے گا برپاتا اہل بیت پیمبر میں شور و شور بہنیں پچھاڑی خاک پا کھاتی تھی کر کے حسینے پہ ہاتھ مار کے چلاتے تھے حسین اب اٹھ گیا زمانے سے ہم بے قصوں کا چین اب اٹھ گیا زمانے سے ہم بے قصوں کا چین بازو ہمارا ٹوٹ گیا با مصیبت باپ آج ہم سے چھوٹے گیا وا مصیبت باپ آج ہم سے چھوٹے گیا وا مصیبت ناگاہ اہل بیت میں ماتم بپا ہوا زہرا کلال راہیے ملک بقا ہوا غل پڑ گیا حسین حسن سے جدا ہوا زینب تڑپ کے کہتی تھیں لوگوں یہ کیا ہوا زینب تڑپ کے کہتی تھیں لوگوں یہ کیا ہوا میت کے گرد مسترو دلگیر روتے تھے قاسم کو لے کے گود میں شبیر روتے تھے قاسم کو لے کے گود میں شبیر روتے تھے جس دم حسن کو رو چکے ناموں سے مصطفیٰ غسل و کفن سے ہو گئے فارغ شہ خدا لے کر جنازہ خلف شیر کے بریا قبر نبی کی سمت چلے خیش و اقربا قبر نبی کی سمت چلے خیش و اقربا عورت کا لشکر آفت نشان لیے ہر لشکری تھا ہاتھ میں تیرو کمان لیے ہر لشکری تھا ہاتھ میں تیرو کمان لیے زہر دغا سے غیر جو حال حسن ہوا پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات
To the honor and the love that all these poets have and the reciters have, we want to dedicate Surah Al-Fatiha for their, inshallah, continued success and dedicate it to the marhumin, their marhumin as well, and all those that are present and connected with us virtually. Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. And the poet says, Abbas, lion cub of Haidar, son of Zahra's sanctity, when you see Hasan's coffin torn, hold back your sword just like Ali. O my lion cub, O Abbas, Ya Abbas, I am Haidar, your father. You who tore men into two halves, today weep for your half-brother. Arrows pierced his lonely coffin. Arrows pierced his lonely coffin, a patient yet blood-stained feather. Take your hand away from that sword just like I did for his mother. Embrace your chains, O my lion, and embrace them patiently. When you see those arrows fired, hold back your sword just like Ali. Bearer of the vein that explode, when danger comes towards your pride, let your eyes from sorrow explode, and beneath that your anger hide. Do not react to their arrows and keep my Zainab by your side. When you carry Hasan's coffin, my beloved, carry it with pride. They will fire arrows at it. Abbas, protect your family. The time for vengeance will come soon. Hold back your sword just like Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Our condolences to the Imam of our time on the Shahadat of Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. May Allah give us the ability to make him proud of the little that we're able to do, and more importantly, spread the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Just like we say, Ya Hussein, we will continue to say, Ya Hasan. A couple quick announcements, inshallah, on behalf of the organization. First and foremost, our condolences to the Imam. Alhamdulillah, on the safe arrival of our Sheikh Jaffer. Inshallah, for those that are interested, this Saturday we will have an information booth at City Hall, at City of Kitchener City Hall. So anyone that's interested in participation in setting up the tent and providing tabarruk, please connect with us at the end of the session tonight. Inshallah, there's an information prep session for that. So that's one way to spread the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Next Wednesday, inshallah, there will be the Shahadat, the Majlis Shahadat of Sayyida Sakina alayhi salam. We're blessed to have Sheikh Imam Nasruddin, and as well they will be the alam from the dome of the dome of Abu Fadl al-Abbas, and also from the dome of Sayyida Zainab from Sierra that will be present. And then on the weekend, the following weekend, starting Saturday, the series of Arba'in, inshallah, by Sayyid Hasan Tabatabai. Without further ado, prayers, alhamdulillah. I will request our Sheikh Jaffer to bless this community with a few words in the honor of Ahlul Bayt, with one loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahu Akbar. Yes, okay. Allahu Akbar. Ya Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الحكيم وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Our respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. It's due to that kindness and mercy that we have these opportunities where we gather in remembrance and glorification of Him, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We then send our condolences to our 12th and living Imam Al-Hujjah, Jalallahu Ta'ala, Farajahu Sharif, and to each and every one of you as we gather this evening to commemorate the Istishhad anniversary of our second Imam, Imam Al-Hasan Al-Mujtaba, alayhima afdalu salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We can do better with our salawat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we each get an opportunity to go for the Ziyarah of our Imam to Baqi, inshaAllah, and that we receive their shafaat in the hereafter, inshaAllah. Our Imam alayhi salam was born on the 15th of Shahru Ramadan, in the 3rd year after Hijrah, and his Shahadat happened in the 50th year after Hijrah. There are a couple of dates that are given. One is this date, the 7th of Safar. One is towards the end of Safar. But overall, it is the year 50 when his Shahadat happened. And when you look at that, that means he only lived for 46 years, 46 and a half years. And that's a really young life, you know. If you look at our Imam, especially the first 5 or 6, they generally got to about late 50s, early 60s before the Abbasid dynasty came and their lifespan began to shrink. But our second Imam lived for 46 years. And in these 46 years, the Imam alayhi salam showed us, you know, a lot of brilliant characteristics that we can learn, that we can apply into our lives. And there's one particular that I want to develop our lecture from. It's a story about the nature, the generous nature of our Imam alayhi salam. You know, it is said in this book by Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini, he says one day the Imam alayhi salam arrived home. And when he arrived home, it had been a long day and he was tired and he intended to rest when he got home. And just as soon as he walked into his home, somebody knocked on the door, right? And the Imam alayhi salam answered the door and asked how he could help this person. The person was a bit shy. He was embarrassed. You know, sometimes when we have a need, it's very difficult to put that need to people. And so he felt ashamed, he felt a bit embarrassed, and he couldn't speak and communicate the way he wanted. And the Imam understood that. And so the Imam alayhi salam made him comfortable. He brought him inside. He through his words, through his warmth, comforted this person. And then they began to speak, and the person finally began to open up a little bit. And the person describes the difficulty that he was enduring. And he talks about this difficulty as an enemy, right? The tradition says, he says that I have come to you to seek help against an enemy who shows no respect to the aged. That means this enemy does not care whether the person is young or this person is old. And he says, my life is in a state of misery and I am helpless. So, O son of the Prophet, heed my call and try to assist me. And so he says, my enemy is poverty, that I am enduring great difficulty in just surviving. And then he adds a very nice point, you know. He says that I am not a lazy person, right? That means I'm not a person who doesn't work. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm sure when we stop at a traffic light and we see these people begging, you know, and we look at their condition and we're like, man, you're a young, fit-looking guy. You know, you can go out, get a job, you can do something, right? But here, this man, you know, he puts it out there. He says, I work. I'm not a lazy person. I go out and I do what I have to, but yet the condition of my life is such that I cannot even meet the expenses that I have. You know, I think many of us can relate to that in this climate that we live in today, where we go out, we put in the effort, but we find that we just can't get ahead. Yeah, we just can't get to a level where, like, you know, we can have something to rest back on, for example, you know. I have almost accepted that I'm never going to be rich, you know, but that Allah is always going to just provide what I need. You know, it's the idea of having this abundance that sometimes we think that when we think of rich people, you know, that they have this bank account they can go swimming in, you know, and The fact is that for most people, that's not how God provides for us, because maybe that type of wealth would even corrupt us, right? But Allah provides, and Allah provides however much we need. And in certain instances, people do struggle, right? And so the Imam alayhi salam, his heart softened for this person, And so the Imam, being the Imam, he says that I will pay off your debts. Yeah? And so the Imam alayhi salam gave him whatever the person needed. And he says, go, pay off your debts, and inshallah you'll be able to earn a living without having to worry about your past debts. And then the Imam says, if that enemy ever comes to attack you again, Imam used his very own words, that the man used. He said, if the enemy ever comes to attack you again, you must come back and complain to me about it. Yeah? And he says, the poverty of people like you who work hard is because their rights are not properly given to them. Yeah? And it's this story, that I think is very powerful if we were to analyze it. There are multiple points here that describe for us our responsibility when it comes to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first is that we have to be welcoming and open when people come to us with whatever it is they require. Not everyone comes for money. Sometimes people come with questions. Sometimes people come needing assistance of a physical kind. But the expectation is that we assist people at our own expense, right? Here the story was very specific to say that the Imam had worked, he was tired, and so he came home with the intention of resting. Yet somebody knocked on his door, and the Imam disregarded his own need at that particular time and assisted this person. I think this happens to us in many different ways. It's a way God tests us, Sometimes I'm tired and I'll get a phone call and somebody needs my assistance. And you're like, should I answer this? Should I not answer this? It's a test, right? It's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see how much we are willing to sacrifice to try to make the lives of others even a slightly bit better. Sometimes there is a project that needs to be done at the mosque, for example, but it's my only weekend that I have off. How much time am I willing to sacrifice and juggle my family time and the time for other people? We can't disregard the family time. But the Imam alayhi salam here teaches us, the difference between, being a kareem and being a sakhi. There are layers of generosity. There are layers of where a person ascends. There's a sakhi is a person, who we are told, alladhi ya'kul wa yu'ti. Right? A sakhi is a person who themselves will look after their needs, but they will also look after the needs of others. This is a remarkable quality where we're not neglectful of what other people need. But then the tradition tells us, al-kareem alladhi la ya'kul wa yu'ti. Right? A kareem is one who is even a higher station where they themselves will not eat, but they will ensure that other people eat. Now what does that mean, right? From a translation purpose, it doesn't mean that we deprive ourselves, but what it does mean is that we make ourselves uncomfortable for the comfort of others. This is a very important quality of a human being, that sometimes I am willing to take half an hour less sleep if I can make the life of somebody else better. I am willing to make certain sacrifices in my own life so that other people don't have to live a life of difficulty or life of need. And so that's one of the first lessons the Imam alayhi salam teaches us. The second lesson is, and this is especially valuable for people who others feel comfortable to approach. If we have developed a generous nature, not just wealth, but just a generous nature, where people know that, okay, Fulan will answer my call, right? Are there people who take advantage? Of course there are. We have to weed those out, But people feel comfortable to come to certain types of people. Those people should never lose their patience when they deal with somebody who has a need. And this is very difficult to do. Sometimes, again, I can just speak from personal examples. Sometimes the phone calls we get and the help that people need, it's easy to say, hey, open your eyes, listen to what I'm saying, right? Like you can be a bit aggressive and say, just pay attention, I'll guide you. But you can't lose your patience like that. The Imam saw this person was uncomfortable. The Imam didn't push him. Speak up, I'm tired, tell me what you want, right? Because that's sometimes the reaction that we have, like just be quick about it, I'll give you. But the Imam knows that just giving something while being sour loses the effect of that giving, right? So you give while having a generous personality and a warm personality, then even if that giving is not as much as that person needs, the warmth that came with it will supplement whatever it is you gave, right? And so that's another important lesson the Imam teaches us, that even with the need to make others comfortable in their uncomfort in what they are asking for. The third lesson is to give, to give. And like, I heard a scholar say something that's really interesting. He said, we all have something to give. We all do. It doesn't have to be money. It could be our resources. It could be the connections that I have. It could be my time. It could be my guidance that I can provide for you. And at the very least, I can give you akhlaq. Very least, that's the least, right? He says, but we all have something to give, because if we didn't, then it brings into the question that God is Razzaq, isn't it? Right? Like if I say I have nothing to give you, not even warmth, then that's a problem in my understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So give, whatever it is that you can, you give. And the last point that from this particular story that I think is fascinating is that the last line that the Imam says, he says the poverty of people like you who work hard is because their rights are not properly given to them. By whom? By others. When people deprive others of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us, the result of that is that we will see poverty in this world, right? When I hoard, naturally the ramification of that hoarding is that I have prevented that particular good from reaching somebody else who may have needed it, right? And this brings us to this extended topic that I want to go into, is that how as a people we are so interconnected with one another, right? That as a group, as a civilization, as mankind, our success is fully dependent upon each other. That means I can't do it by myself, right? And I need the assistance of other people. No matter what I do, no matter where I am, there's nothing that we can say I can fully be a person who is self-sufficient. No, eventually I'll need a doctor. Eventually I'll need a car mechanic. Eventually I'll need something. I'll need something else. I'll need a farmer to grow food, right? I'll need animals to help me harvest that food if I'm my own farmer, for example. And so the needs are plenty. And this is where we have to understand our role, in our society. I find this very fascinating, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge us as individuals. As individuals. That means we're not going to go as a community to God and say, take our hisab. No, He's going to judge us one by one. How we did, what we did. And so what you see is that individual responsibility is so great, right? Like I am going to be judged. At the end of the day, I'll be sleeping alone in my grave. No one's coming with me, right? And so individually is where that responsibility is. But it's the responsibility of the individual to look after the affairs of the collective. That's what makes an insan a perfect human being, right? What takes an insan from being an insan to being an insanul kamil is not that they look after themselves, but how do they improve the lives of other people around them, right? How do they bring light into people who they associate with? Like if you look at the history that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown us, right? Like every prophet that came was a fully guided, perfect human being. Every prophet, every man and woman of God who have come, they are a fully functioning, perfect human being. Yet Allah didn't say, Bas, I accept your perfection, now come to me. No, what did God say? God said, go and try to bring other people to perfection. Because that's our responsibility, right? Our responsibility is not just myself. My responsibility is to try to make the lives of others better. And this is where it starts in small segments, where the family that I'm in, how we're all so responsible and connected to each other. You know, one person in a family has bad attitude, it affects the entire family, right? One person is disregarding of what other people in that emotions of the other people in that house, and the whole fabric of the house is in chaos. And so if everybody plays their part, then that house thrives. And if the community, everyone plays their part, the community thrives. And so we're all in this together. And this is where we have to realize is that the moment each individual can look beyond themselves, right? And care for the needs of others selflessly, where I am willing to make sacrifices of my own self for the betterment of other people, that person in turn gets looked at first by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? Y'all understand or no, right? That the moment I look after others first, in turn God will look after me first. Yeah? There's a very beautiful hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. What's happening? Whenever I used to come here, the salawats used to be so nice, you know, and now it's dimmed a bit. Can we recite a ladder? Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Where he says that I heard the Prophet say, Man athara ala nafsi, that whoever places others before themselves, athara Allahu yawm al-qiyamati al-jannah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in turn will place him before others into paradise. Yeah? That whoever places the needs of others first, Allah will place their needs first. And so this mentality is really something that we have to learn and appreciate. You know, we are taught, and this is how society teaches us. Society teaches us, you worry about yourself, God will look after others. That's not what Islam teaches us. Islam teaches us, you look after others, God will look after you. Right? And this is a mental shift. It's really a mental shift that we have to do to be able to put our trust in God. It means we're smart too. So it doesn't mean that I give everything, my time, my energy. No, I have to learn the fine responsibility of balance, right? How to be a balanced human being and know when to give, how to give. But that's something that comes through practice. That's something that comes through learning, and inshallah we can figure that out. But what we want to understand is that one of the most important characteristics, right, that we can have, and that the Imam taught us in this story that I told, is a selfless nature, right? To be a person who is willing to make oneself uncomfortable for the comfort of other people. This is something that is not necessarily just related to money, you know, though money is a big part of it, right? Like about how I can give and what I can give. And this is where a generous person will give, you know, and we should all be at least at the very minimum a generous person, where we give. And I'll look after myself, but I'll give. But then we have to also learn that generosity has layers to it, right? And so how do I rise above that level of generosity where now I just give, for example, my wajibats, and now I give a little bit extra in sadaqat. But then sometimes I want to try to rise in rank, right? Because this is how one rises in rank. And one of the ways that is really important that we have to understand is that the moment I begin to make myself uncomfortable for the comfort of others, I begin to rise in rank. Yeah, and like financially, I think that's really like a very simple tool that I think I may have shared with you many times. But give until it pinches you to give. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying go broke. That's not what I'm saying, yeah? But, like let's say, for example, there's a cause that comes up. And without hesitation, I'm like, $50, I can give $50, yeah? That's great. I'm a generous person. But how do I rise above that? To give an amount that it pinches me to give. Not that I'll go broke, but maybe it just be $55. But 55? That pinched me. Well, give 55 then. Yeah? As long as it's not something that's going to handicap you, bankrupt you, make you struggle, but it's that level where you're out of your own comfort level. That is something that is really powerful. When you look at a home life, it's mothers who do this. Mothers who will sacrifice their sleep for the comfort of their children, who will sacrifice maybe their professions for the comfort of their children and the education of their children, who will sacrifice their own leisure time so that they can cook for their family. These are things that we can do in many different ways. But one of the supreme characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants is that we become these type of people who will always utilize the opportunities presented to them to try and improve the lives of other people around us, however it is that we can, right? We don't have to change the whole world, but we have to change at least one or two lives on a consistent basis, even if it is through akhlaq, even if it is through a smile. And this is where it comes back to this idea that whatever we have been provided with by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be it our health, be it our wealth, be it our energy, be it our strength, be it our ingenuity, be it our creativity, be it our voice, we've been all given some remarkable gifts by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe sometimes we take it for granted, but we have certain talents, and everyone has certain gifts that God has given us. What we have to understand is that these gifts are not just to make my own life better, right? But they are there to make the lives of other people better as well. And so when you look at this idea of being selfless, the way we are describing, the way our second Imam was known for, he was known for being selfless. We talked about it in his story. There are 3 points that I think are really important for us to understand. The first point that we have to understand is that the opportunity to do good, is known as ma'roof. The opportunity to do good is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we get this opportunity, that opportunity should always be capitalized. Always. We have a hadith that's narrated from our sixth Imam, as-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, where he's reported to have said, al-ma'roof ka-ismihi, that ma'roof, like to do good or goodness, is just like its name suggests. It's something good, right? And he says, وَلَيْسَ شَيْءٌ أَفْضَلُ مِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ إِلَّا ثَوَابِهِ. He says, and there is nothing better than doing good except the reward that comes from doing good. So there's nothing better than to do good for other people. There's nothing better except what Allah will give you for doing good. But that's out of our control. So we worry about what we can do, about doing good. And then he says, al-ma'roof hadiyatun min Allahi ila abdihi. That goodness and the opportunity to do good is a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to His creation, right? So it's not me who is doing the good. It's really God who gave me that opportunity to do good. It's a gift that God presented to me that I'm just utilizing. But then the Imam alayhi salam, he talks about 3 important points about doing good, right? He says, وَلَيْسَ كُلُّ مَنْ يُحِبُّ أَنْ يَصْنَعَ الْمَعْرُوفِ إِلَى النَّاسِ يَصْنَعَهُ. He says it's not everyone who wants to do good gets the opportunity to do good. So understand what the Imam is saying. So sometimes an idea will come to my head. Let's do this. But then also something will counter that where I don't get that opportunity to do it. Right? Many reasons. Many reasons. Many reasons, for example, I say I'll do it in an hour, for example. And in that hour, I had a change of heart. That impulse of doing good vanished, right? It's no longer there. That motivation to do that good is no longer there. Or, for example, I was just distracted and I lost that opportunity, right? So there was this opportunity where maybe it's a Friday evening and before Maghrib, and there's a chance to recite Dua Samat, for example, and I have half an hour and something tells me recite Dua Samat. And I'll say, oh, I'll do it. And then Iblis shows me my phone, yeah? And I spend 20 minutes just scrolling, and then I look at the time and I'll be like, I lost the time to recite Dua Samat, right? What happened? I was just distracted. And so that opportunity to do good comes, but we just didn't capitalize on that opportunity to do good for any reason, right? So sometimes I have a change of heart. Sometimes I'm distracted from doing that particular good. Sometimes I get busy, right? So for example, I made the intention to go at the food bank on the weekend, and then something came up and I didn't get that opportunity. It's not necessarily negligence on my part, but let's say work called and said you have to come, right? But the fact is, not everyone who wants to do good, the Imam says, gets a chance to do good. Yeah, you all with me, right? And so not everybody got that chance to do good. Then the Imam alayhi salam says, وَلَا كُلُّ مَنْ رَغِبَ فِيهِ يَقْدِرُ عَلَيْهِ. And not everyone who desires to do good is capable of doing good, right? So let's say I have a bad back, for example, and I know that there are people who are planting trees and I want to plant trees, but I'm not capable of it. So I don't get that opportunity, right? There are people, for example, who may be walking from Najaf to Karbala, right? And I have bad legs, I have bad knees, and so I don't get a chance to do that walk. And so the Imam alayhi salam says that we have to understand this as a very important second point, that not everyone who desires to do good is capable of doing good, right? And then the Imam alayhi salam says, وَلَا كُلُّ مَنْ يَقْدِرُ عَلَيْهِ يُؤْذَنَ لَهُ. And not everyone who is then capable of doing it is given permission to do it. Yeah? So for example, my knees are fine, my back is fine, but I don't get a visa to go. And so that ability to do that good is not there for me. Or I live in a tyrannical area where those in power don't allow me to go, for example. Whatever the reason is. But these three things the Imam alayhi salam says are there. There are people who like to do good, but they themselves don't do good. Yeah? Other people who have the desire to do good are not capable of doing good. And the third is that those who are capable of doing it, but they're just not granted permission to go do it. So there are various reasons why a person may not be able to do good. But then the Imam says, فَإِذَا مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْعَبْدِ. But when Allah wants to favor His creation, and when He wants to gift His creation, when He wants to bless His creation, جَمَعَ لَهُ الرَّغْبَةُ فِي الْمَعْرُوفِ وَالْقُدْرَةِ وَالْإِذْنِ. Yeah? But then when God wants to bless His people, and He wants to give them this opportunity, He gives them desire, ability, and permission to do that particular act. Yeah? So when you have all of these three things, فَهُنَالِكَ تَمَّتِ السَّعَادَةَ وَالْكَرَامَةِ. That's the perfection of God's blessings upon you at that point. That you have this ability, yeah? You have the desire and you have the opportunity. Right? And when you don't capitalize, when all three of these things are there, we have let down the gift of Allah and we will be answerable for not doing that. Think about that. Yeah, think about that. Even something that is not even wajib on my realm. Any gift that God gives us, if we misuse that particular gift, we will be held accountable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when I get an idea in my head to do something, right? And I have the ability to do it, I have the permission to do it, and I have the desire to do it. I mean, it's there, and I still refuse to do it, Allah will ask me about misusing His gift on the Day of Judgment. It's a very powerful thing. It's a very powerful thing. This is why the Imam said in that story that we gave, that when people are poor, even though they work hard, it's because others fail to use the gifts God gave them by providing and doing ma'ruf. Right? And this is something is not only related to money, but it is sometimes related to money. Right? I have the $55 to donate. I can just press a button on my phone and donate. Yeah? And there's nothing preventing me from donating. It's the right cause, the right time, and I have something in me that tells me do it. Don't pass it up. Do it. Because it will go away. It will go away. Right? It is something that we can't take for granted. But this comes in like so many different ways. So many different ways. You know, sometimes you'll get this notion in your head. Say I love you to your wife, for example, or your spouse. And then shaitan will be like, but she hasn't said it to you. Yeah? Then why you are the always one? Man, that's just shaitan messing with you. Right? Saying I love you to your wife, to your spouse, is an act that the Prophet used to do. Yeah? He says that that's something that never leaves the heart. And so when Allah inspires you to do ma'ruf, and you have these things where, well, she didn't say it to me, whatever, I said it 3 times in a row, say it. Yeah, something tells you to hug your parents. Hug your parents. Yeah? Something tells you to pray a 2 rakat salah. Pray a 2 rakat salah. I mean, I'm telling you, there are times when God inspires us with doing ma'ruf simply to see whether or not we have the capacity to receive more inspiration from God. Yeah? You with me or no? Yeah, I'm just dropping gems on you. Understand what I'm saying, yeah? That sometimes there are things that we look at and we say, this is a small thing. Well, God is seeing if we take the small thing before He gives us a big thing, right? And so when we get that inclination, you know, this is something we all are tested with. We may wake up to go to the bathroom at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and something will tell us, just do wuzu and pray a 2 rakat salah, go to bed. It'll add 3 more minutes to your time. But then you'll be like, nah, I'm going to go to bed. Right? God was just testing you to see if you're ready to receive even bigger things. Right? We didn't do anything haram by not praying that 2 rakat salah. Nothing haram. Yeah? We just decided to ignore the inspiration from God to do ma'ruf. Yeah? And so this inspirations come to all of us. All of us. Sometimes it's in small ways. You're just sitting, your kids are sitting, they're whining, something tells you play a game with them. You're like, nah, I don't want to play. Yeah? No, play. Yeah? Say I love you. Hug your parents. Do all of these small examples of ma'ruf. Yeah? Before that opportunity is taken away, I'm telling you, these small acts of ma'ruf develop us to be able to do greater acts of ma'ruf. Right? And this is where we come to our second point when it comes to it. So that was the first point, that this is a gift from God. The ability, the desire, and the opportunity. When all those 3 things are present and we don't do it, we will be held accountable by Allah for neglecting one of the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The second point that we are taught when it comes to doing ma'ruf, yeah, is that don't consider any act of ma'ruf as small and insignificant. Right? Even though we may think it's small and insignificant, like saying, I love you to your children or your family, like hugging your parents, like being in the state of wudu, like playing with you. Man, nothing, no ma'ruf. Yeah, ma'ruf is what? When we make someone else's life better, isn't it? That's what we said ma'ruf is. To do good where I'm bettering the life of other people. It doesn't have to be huge things that better the life of other people. Smallest things sometimes make the biggest impact. You know, I shared this story, I think I shared it here, but it's worth because it comes to my mind all the time. When I teach in the madrasa, you know, like I teach Quran, but I ask them to write papers in that class. Some of my students are here. And one of the parts of that paper is to do a personal reflection. Right? I want them to be able to tap into their own self and be able to understand God's impact in that, you know. And I remember with this past year, one of my students, remarkable, yeah, she talked about how she was struggling with mental illness, you know, and she was going through a lot of difficulty. But then she said something really cool, you know. She said that one day she was at a Husainiya and she was passing out water or sabil or something. And she said that she passed by a lady and offered it to her, but the lady just grabbed her hand gently. And she said, I know, I can tell by your face you're going through some difficulty. She's like, I don't want to know what it is. She said, but I want you to know I'll make dua for you from tonight. That's all she said. That's all she said. And this girl writes about it months later. She said, that act of kindness gave me hope in my life. Yeah? Hope. Man, you never know how you can impact somebody else. You can never know, right? We just have to look past ourselves. We just have to look past like this thing. Never think something is small. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He has this really beautiful hadith where he says, never deem any act of ma'roof, common courtesy or goodness that you are able to carry out as insignificant. Never consider any act of ma'roof, yeah, a dua, a smile, whatever. He says, don't consider any one of these acts as being insignificant in comparison to a greater act. Yeah? So, you know, I'll be like, I vacuumed or I donate to a mosque. You know, in our minds we'll be like donating to a mosque, right? But the Imam says, don't consider this act as insignificant compared to that other act where you're like, oh, I'm going to do something even greater if I don't do this right now. Because the Imam says, for verily or indeed, the simple act performed when the need for it arises is more beneficial to its receptor than the great act when there's no need for that great act. You follow or no? Yeah? Amazing, right? Amazing. Me being nice to you right now will have a greater impact than me donating to a mosque when there's already so many mosques. I changed your life right now. That in the eyes of God is more impactful, right? Sometimes we think, no, I'm saving my money for this greater cause. No, Baba, Allah gave you a cause right now. Why are you neglecting this cause right now? Because you have this idea that I'll have this bigger cause later. What if I die before that opportunity comes? If it's God's work will always be done. Always be done. Yeah? But God gave me this opportunity right now. Don't consider it. Don't neglect it. Do it. Appreciate every opportunity we are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And never, when you compare it to something else, think that, this was a small act. Allah gave you that chance. How can it be a small act? Yeah? Allah gave you that opportunity. Is it something small from God? No. So number two, don't ever think that an act is insignificant. It's not, man. It came as a gift from God. How can it be insignificant? The third point about ma'roof that is really important is that try and encourage others to join you in doing ma'roof. Yeah? Try, right? You know, there are people out there like who are demanding and pushy when they want something done. No, don't be demanding, don't be pushy. But put it out there. Hey, this opportunity is there. Anybody wants to come and do it, right? Like it was announced earlier, they're holding something at City Hall. If anybody wants to come, they didn't call and say, you have to come, you have to come, you have to come, but they just put it out there, right? We're all part of WhatsApp groups. Sometimes we become disenfranchised with all of the requests for different funds, you know, and well, you don't have to do it, right? But put it out there. Put it out there, especially if you know it's a good cause. Put it out there, right? You never know who may at that moment be inspired to do that particular good act. Put it out there. Let the world take where it's going to go. But put it out there. We have to encourage others to do ma'roof. Sometimes there are people who are just waiting. for people to inspire them to do ma'ruf. We all want to donate. We all want to do good. Sometimes we just don't know where to go, where to do it. Put it out there. And never fear, sometimes we get uber stingy with thawab, Like, man, if I share this, I'll get less thawab, right? Like, we're all the thawab counters. Man, don't be thawab counters, right? Like, the one who is like organizing the thawab, like, like if you ever want to get somebody to do a long amal, what do you tell them? The thawab of that amal, yeah? You're like, Baba, angels will come in your grave and be like, I'm doing it. Who cares? Right? Who cares? Like, we've just lost the value of that act by doing that. Like, I'm engaging in a transaction with God now. Oh, that's never let the reward be your motivator for doing an act. Yeah? Because then, like, our relationship with God is frugal. Yeah? But do an act because you think God is worthy of doing that act. And so I do that particular act, right? And so don't ever worry about don't ever get stingy to say that if I give, like, let's say there's $500 to give to a cause, and I can give $500, but I put it out there. And now all I can give is 100 because 4 other people came and they said they'll give 100. Now I think, man, I'm going to get 1/5 of the thawab, right? Because I shared this with others. No, that's not how it works, right? Again, a lovely hadith from our sixth Imam as-Sadiq alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. Salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He says, "Law jaral ma'ruf ala thamanina kaffan." He says that if the act of goodness were to pass 80 hands, 80 hands that the act of goodness passes through, لَأُجِرُوا كُلُّهُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَنْقُصَ صَاحِبُهُ مِنْ أَجْرِهِ شَيْئًا. Yeah? He says all 80 would get the same reward from Allah without anything diminishing from the person who started the ma'ruf. God is great, people. God is great. Yeah? God wants as many people to engage in ma'ruf. God wants as many people to do good. It's not just about the individual. That's the point we started with as well. That it's not about the individual God is concerned about. Because if I am given time, will I not be able to do a lot of good? Of course I will. If God gives me unending money, will I not be able to do as much good than this other? Of course. But it's not about the individual. It's how do I make the collective successful? Yeah? And ma'ruf is one of those opportunities that we have. And when we look at the life of our second Imam, he did all of these 3 things on a regular basis. Yeah? He capitalized on every opportunity that came to him. He didn't consider any of these acts as being small. And whenever the opportunity presented itself, he always encouraged other people to join. Remember these 3 points. And inshallah, we will be living the seerah of Imam al-Hasan alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Tonight we mourn for this great personality. This Imam who showed us the brilliant ways in which we can live that godly life. It is said when our second Imam alayhi salam was young, he one day walked in front of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and when the Prophet saw him, tears began to emerge from the Prophet's eyes. And when he was asked, Ya Rasulullah, ma yubki, what makes you cry? He says, وَإِنِّي لَمَّا نَظَرْتُ إِلَيْهِ ذَكَرْتُ مَا يَجْرِي عَلَيْهِ. That when I saw this young son of mine, I remembered what I was told will happen to him. And they asked him, what will happen to him, Ya Rasulullah? And he says, فَيَقْتُلُ بِالسُّمِّ ظُلْمًا. That he will be poisoned and oppressed, this young son of mine. And he will endure great difficulty. And how right the Prophet was. That this poison, when it was given to our second Imam, the condition of the Imam began to change. And the condition and the body of the Imam began to deteriorate. It is said one of the companions came to see the Imam. And when he saw his condition, he said, oh Imam, I know a doctor, I know a tabib who can come and maybe he can prescribe you something. The Imam says, no, this is not the first time I've been poisoned. He said, this is my third time. I know how certain poisons will react. He said, there is no coming back from this poison. It is said in certain narrations that the condition was such that internal pieces of the body of the Imam began to come out in his vomit. It is said he had a pot or some type of container that he would vomit into, and blood would come out because of this poison. And one day, as the poison prolonged, one day he was told his sister Zainab has come to see. When he heard that Zainab has come, the first thing he did was he said, take away this pot. Why, Ya Imam al-Hasan? Because he did not want Zainab to endure the musibah of this. Why? Zainab is being saved for another day. The musibah that Zainab will see is not something that any other person sees, but let's not add to that musibah now. This is why when Imam al-Hussein would come to see him, the Imam would cry, and Imam al-Hasan would say, what's these tears, oh my brother? He said, we cry because of what you are enduring. The Imam says, La yawm ka yawmuka ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day like your day, O Hussein. Do not cry for me, because you will be surrounded without anyone being present. You will be struck without there anyone to be at your assistance. Do not cry for me, O Hussein. It is said in the final moments of our Imam's life, the Imam alayhi salam said, take me out to the Sahan and let me see the heavens and the skies as my last breath leaves my body. And then when he was there outside, he looks to his brother Hussein and says, Ya Akhi, part of my will to you is that I want to be buried next to my grandfather. But he says, oh Hussein, if the enemies stop us and do not allow us, I do not want you to fight. The Imam alayhi salam agreed, and then Imam al-Hasan left this world. Wa imama rahimallahu man nada. Wa imama. The Imam left this world. Imam al-Hussein and his brothers gave ghusl and kafan to the Imam. And then they carried the janaza as they were heading to the grave of Rasulullah. Al Marwan and Banu Umayyah and Aisha stood in front of them, and they began to shoot arrows at the janaza of Hasan. We say, Wa Hasana, Wa Madluma, that arrows came to your janaza. But Imam, look at your brother Hussein. These janazas came to you while the life had left your body. But Hussein had to take them while life was still in his body. It is said Imam alayhi salam, Imam al-Hussein looked at Al Marwan and said to him, were it not for the wasiyat of my brother, you would have seen today the strength of the Banu Hashim, that my hands are handcuffed and I cannot retaliate because of what my brother has said. You know, when we think of the one whose hands were tied, we think of Sajjad. But this was not a handcuffs because of one's wasiyah. These were the handcuffs of the Banu Umayyah. It was in such a condition and the helpless nature of Sajjad that when he saw the body of his father without ghusl and kafan, the Imam alayhi salam's face turned pale until Zainab asked that, what is it, my son? And he says, I feel so helpless, oh my, that my father is there without ghusl and kafan, and there is nothing that I can. فسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسین.
حسن کے پیغام برس رہے ہیں.
حسن کے ہے حسن یا حسن 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 یا حسن ہے 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 حسن یا حسن نکلا تھا جنازہ جو جعفر کے جگر کے تیروں کا بادل جو تابوت پہ چھایا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے زہر نے ٹکڑے کیے شفر کے جگر کے زہر نے ٹکڑے کیے شفر کے جگر کے تیروں کا بادل جو تابوت پہ چھایا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے نکلا تھا جنازہ جو گھر لوٹ کے آیا ہے فاتح خیبر کو لے آئے بنا کے فاتح خیبر کو لے آئے بنا قیدی تھے محمد پہ دروازہ گرایا ہے जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा घर लौट के आया है मौला हसन के चूम के लब कहते थे अहमद मौला हसन के चूम के लब कहते थे अहमद आए लबों से जिक्र हसन दर्श में आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है करबल में मेरा भाई के अकबर असगर जा करबल में मेरा भाई दे अकबर असगर जा कुर्बान करना से परवा को बताया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है निकला था जनाजा जो घर लौट के आया है किसके तरह से हाल को किसके तरह से हाल को उम्मत ने सताया है बर मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद
عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم يا رب. To my brothers